You are listening to the Gritty Podcast, where we talk about all things gritty. All right, folks, welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Call, and I'm joined today by my friend Brad Hunt. And today's podcast is with our guest, Ryan Lampers, a.k.a. Stealthy Hunter. We just got back from a while back. Well, I should say we just dropped a hunt film of our Alaskan caribou moose hunt.
Yep.
Hopefully you guys have been watching it and you've been enjoying it. Today's podcast, we're going to talk a little bit about that hunt. Go into a little more detail as for strategy, tactics, how it went down. And we got a lot of questions on our YouTube channel about the Weatherby 338 RPM. So we basically use it almost every hunt this year. So he and I talked about that. It's not only the round itself and the performance of the gun, but the weight.
The weight. I mean, you're with scope mounted rail, like everything on there, rings. You're 6.5 pounds.
Or 6.
And it's, I think it's, between 6 and 6.5 pounds right there. And it is so short. That's super short.
I mean, every time I handed it to somebody who hadn't touched it before or had it in their hand, they were like, oh, because you put it on your rifle, your pack, and it doesn't stick up too high. Anyway, we get into that on today's show. I think you're going to find this a useful conversation. And we have more podcasts. Ryan and I got to talk, and it was like 3.5 hours of conversation. So I had Brad split it up into multiple
parts. Yep.
Okay.
So 4 parts for all this podcast. And then we'll go over gear. You guys go over boots, like food, stealthy products. Just there's a whole bunch in there.
Mule deer hunting.
Mule deer hunting, yep.
So it's a little bit of stuff, but I decided let's just break this up so you guys can just pick the stuff you want to listen to based on the title of the podcast, topic specific tied to the title. We have some big giveaways going on right now. If you're not aware, we have a $6,000 package, hunt package we're giving away. We've got bows in there. We've got
the new Peaks teepee. You got canvas cutter, a full
it's good thing Brad's here.
Dominator 2.0 bundle. Like, that's the full setup, full pull system, everything.
Yep.
Initial scent backpack.
And to be entered to win the big $6,000 hunt package, all you got to do is shop at Peaks Equipment, and every $10 you spend gets you an entry to win the package. We're going to announce the winners on December 18th. Yeah. There's also sales going on. So if you use the code GRITTY over there, not only are you entered to win the big prize package, but you're also getting big discounts right now. There's still some Black Friday stuff bleeding over. There's lots of deals. Go over there. Check it out, Peaks. They got the headlamps. They got the gaiters. They got the trekking poles. They even got spoons and merino hats. They got a little bit of everything. But all great products. Stand behind those things. Check them out. Peaks Teepee, for everyone that's asking about it, that teepee will be available sometime in the turn of these.
We don't have like an exact date, but it's beginning of the new year. We should have it.
It should be... you should be able to buy it at one of the expos, the Hunt Expo, Western Hunting Summit, or something like that. If not, like right at the beginning of the year. So the other big giveaway we have going on, if you notice, I'm wearing a Gritty sweatshirt here.
Yep. Here's one of the other ones.
Brad has the camo one. I have just the solid black. It's a heavy duty hoodie, especially the camo one. It's a little bit heavier.
Yeah, it is.
They're nice hoodies. And then I've got this the gray hat on that's Gritty with the traditional kind of logo, and then Brad has a script with the mountain scene. In fact, the mountain one seems to be
the most popular.
They got it in Loden green. They got the gray. They got the black. We've already sold out. Got new shipments in. So it's been great to have you guys participate. But right now we're doing a Gritty merch giveaway as well. You can win a Weatherby rifle, Mark V Hunter, with a Leupold scope. It's a $2,000 setup, and basically, every $10 you spend in the Gritty store at grittystore.com, or just go to briancall.com, click on shop. Every $10 you spend on a hat or shirt or even a water bottle or something branded Gritty from the store, that's an entry to win the rifle. We're going to do that giveaway on December 18th as well.
Yes, correct.
So right around the corner. Cool giveaways.
It's a good rifle in the 6.5 RPM that we've shot many bears with.
And I got to tell you, the sweatshirts and hats are high quality. They're nice. And, of course, it always helps us if you're repping the Gritty brand. We just want to say thank you. Yes. You can also win right now, if you haven't seen the film that we're going to talk about in today's podcast, go check it out. Because if you leave a comment, we're just going to spin through the comments like we usually do. And then we randomly select one. And some lucky winner that left a comment is going to win a Eberly stock backpack.
Yep. A frame and one of the Vapor series, whichever your choice.
Vapor series bags.
Yep.
5, it's a sweet pack. So there's that going on, and then if you share the hunt on Instagram, you're going to win something
from Peaks Equipment.
You have choice. You have an opportunity to win, and that's your choice. Like, do you want a headlamp? Do you want a gator? Do you want the poles? Like, what are you missing in your kit? What do you want? So that stuff's going on. Anything else before we dive into the show?
And the last thing is, right now, with Ryan Lampers, but Stealthy Hunter, they're doing until the end of November. November 30th, they're doing their sale still. And so every $1 spent gives you one entry. They're giving away a Western Hunting Summit pass.
Okay.
And so also you get 10% off of everything in the shop.
'Tis the season right now, is all that kind of big hunt stuff given away. Lots of Black Friday, Cyber
deals
Monday,
going on.
pre-Christmas, post-Thanksgiving sales. So thank you for listening. Thank you for enduring our long promos here. We couldn't do this show without you.
No.
You are the heart and soul of what makes this thing keep going. We love that you support us so much. Just want to say thank you. Stay gritty and enjoy the show. All right, folks, welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Call, and I'm joined this morning by Ryan Lampers, Stealthy Hunter. He's in his basement. I can see we're doing this over Zoom, although I do like the connection. We got some good audio going on right now. And Ryan, what's behind you right there?
I'm in my dungeon, or AKA shipping room. Supplements galore, I guess. There's piles of them. This room is filled with rifle cases and gear and supplements.
Nice.
Unfinished, by the way, which we plan on finishing. Hopefully this winter we get a little drywall up in here. But that's where I'm at, just down. It's quiet down here. I got 3 dogs that don't want to go outside because they're big babies and there's a lot of snow out there. And I've got 4 llamas in the yard and 3 girls in the house, so it's a little crazy upstairs.
Oh, that's right. You still got the llamas out there, huh?
Still got the llamas, yeah. I'm going to bring those back next week down to Bo Beatty. I borrowed those or rented those from Bo, and man, what a big help that was this year. We packed several deer out, and I got to get those back down to Bo. But great llamas. Really appreciate what those guys do over there at Wilderness Ridge Trail Llamas. They're great.
And we'll get Bo on the podcast here soon, because that llama discussion is a good one to have for all these DIY guys out there wanting to pack in remote. And a lot of people don't know that renting llamas is an option, or they're intimidated by the prospect of it. And it's actually surprisingly smooth.
Bo makes it so easy. Like his outfit that he does with his wife there, Kristen, she's amazing. They make it smooth. The workers they have. We had a little issue with one of the llamas. They've had a long season over there. They run them out for Yellowstone trips, and they go every which way. And we had a little issue with one of them. And I was, 9-10 hours away from Bo. And one of the kids stepped up and was like, you know what, I'm going to come swap that llama out right now. He drove all night, showed up the next morning, 10 hours later, and swapped the llamas. and we were back in business and racing our way in. So it was pretty cool. Those guys do an amazing job. I don't know how to do any better. Yeah.
Well, I was fortunate to hunt with Mark and his son Eli for elk with their llamas while you were out hunting with Mark Boardman, right?
Yeah.
And then later, Livesey and I went over and chased some mule deer with Eli. Got Eli I think it's his first buck. I'm not sure. I think so.
First buck. Yeah, first buck for Eli this year.
And we got to leverage those llamas on all the hunts, get in there, get in far, and camp like a king.
Yeah.
I brought
nice, isn't it?
Lampers. I brought my cot. I brought things I would normally not bring. And then I got
Do you feel a little bit of guilt when you go in? You know, we're used to going in like ridiculously light and everything's lean. And then you get these llamas, and then you start throwing a couple things, like the cot.
Mm-hmm.
Feel guilty at all?
I don't.
I got a little guilt. Like
you would.
A little bit of man card by taking these llamas and all the luxurious things I have.
Extra
food.
I don't feel guilty. I do feel weak, like soft, a little soft,
Maybe that's it.
because not only did I get to have my cot, Mark marched in there with Bo's wall tent. So people that don't know, Bo and his team have also produced a wall tent that's kind of more ideal for packing in with llamas. And this little wall tent that Livesey has that he got from Bo Beatty.
It looks solid, real solid.
Oh, and it holds heat, better than a teepee, right? Because it's canvas. Right. Mm-hmm. And he gets that stove going. I got to tell you, man, it's like, it'll spoil you real quick. And then you can stand up in there and you can have a full standing cot. You don't need a low one. And yeah, it'll get you spoiled real quick.
For llama packers, I think, Bo's one of those guys, like he figures things out. He's a creative guy, very smart guy. And he worked on that tent for years and years and years. And it feels like he's done every little detail right to be able to pack in with llamas with those big wall tents. Now, we're still going to be going super light, with how we do it and the miles we put in. We're running teepees and lightweight everything. But I've seen how those guys do it, and the wall tents and everything, that looks pretty nice as well. Might have to pack a couple extra llamas if you're going full bore on a 28-pound tent, but nice in that cold weather, right?
It was nice. And there was, when Brad Hunt had to go home, it was just the three of us. The one wall tent between the three of us was great. But yeah, I love hunting with those llamas. It's surprising how easy they are. I mean, when we just left them at camp for a full 3 days in a row, just tied them up to a post and left.
They're so easy.
And they literally just laid there in the snow. Like, it was like you pushed a pause button on them and then came back and then hit play again. Like, there was so little maintenance involved. It was crazy. And they were just eating snow. They went without water a little too much. We camped them out on a sidewalk in the middle of the city overnight. That was wild. We have some stories to tell there. We're just like, well, hope the llamas are there in the morning, hope nobody does anything. And it was wild because,
what's cool about them is they're so low maintenance. Now let me just say this right now, because it feels like every time I throw a photo up and there happens to be a llama in there, there's a lot of butthurt horse guys out there. Sorry, horse guys, but, I'm not saying llamas are the only way to go when I throw a photo up. That's just how we do it. Everybody can do it differently. Mules, llamas, goats, horses, whatever. We like doing it this way. I can tell you my reason why I love packing in with these guys. Now this isn't new for us. My uncle, we've been hunting. We had llamas. I was thinking back the other day. It was 30 years ago that we started hunting with llamas in North Idaho. They used to have some muzzleloader hunts, and I've got photos of babyface me back when I was in my teens hunting with 4 llamas that my uncle got down in Pocatello, Idaho. And they were great then. They're better now. The bloodlines of just a bigger animal. They can haul more weight. Now, why I love taking these pack animals is, number one, we already talked about it. They're ridiculously easy, low maintenance. You don't have to pack much for them at all. Very low water consumption, which is really nice. Also, I do a lot of hunts with my kids now. My girls are at that age where summer trips, camping, do these hunts with Paley. And you know what I don't have to worry about? A kick to the head from a horse or something like that on one of my girls, which almost happened years ago when I took my daughter down, did a little horse ride just down at this stall in Granite Falls.
Wow.
And she was 2 inches from getting kicked in the head by a horse that they were saddling up for her to ride. And the woman, it floored her that happened, but it happened and could have had our lives changed forever. So I'm not saying horses are bad or anything. It's just an experience we had. But llamas are very safe, and that's something I don't worry about. Yeah. Like, Tana has already been out in the yard. She is all over these llamas. She just plays with them, and they don't care. They're totally safe. So no broken bones, no falling off them because we don't ride them. I still like to hike, get my exercise, and they're just easy to maintain. So that's some of the reasons we like them. Again, not saying that horses are not as good or anything like that. It's just we're not horse guys, and llamas work great for our system.
I ran horses and mules for a few years, number of years. I grew up with horses and pack horses and such, and they have their place, no doubt. But
Sure.
for us, it's really about the hunt, not about the horses. And I think horse hunts tend to be a blend of both, a healthy blend of horse riding. And I've done it. I'm not really interested in riding horses like I used to be. And and there's certain mountain hunts that are nerve-wracking on a horse. We did some in the Eagle Caps, and I'm like, a few of these felt like they were going to fall off a cliff, and
Several of them do every year fall off cliffs.
Yeah.
I've seen them in the mountains, yard sales all the way down the mountain to where that horse is either dead or still standing. But we've seen many, many horse wrecks in the mountains, and that's always been a concern.
I'll tell you what, I feel like they're the perfect sort of pack animal for what we're doing. So anyway, we got on a big tangent there, but hopefully we didn't lose our audience. So let's talk about what we got on this call to talk about, which is Alaska caribou hunting, Alaska moose. I think we'll talk about the moose on a different episode, but we just dropped the caribou hunt, and that was yesterday, I think. So folks, it's Sunday morning, and Lambers and I are going to talk a little bit about that hunt, and we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to talk about the hunt because there's a lot of context and things that happen that you don't get to see on the film. So we can add a little color to that and answer some of the questions we've been getting on YouTube about the hunt. And then let's talk about some of the gear stuff too that worked. Some new stuff like the rifle, a couple other things that we played around with that were new. And let's get into that. So first off, this hunt. Why don't you just kind of give folks an idea of how this happened and how we are where we are the morning of the hunt?
Yeah. So, number one, let me start off with saying, caribou hunt is something I've wanted to do for a very, very long time. I never put it real high on the list. So, but again, I think for most folks, and we've seen it in the comments, this is a kind of a bucket list hunt for everyone. A dream hunt for some, and it was something that we looked forward to. And we were fortunate to be able to combo it with a moose hunt, which was really cool because that was a little higher on my bucket list. I'll be honest, taking a moose. You've already taken a couple moose. So I know you wanted to shoot moose, but also do the caribou thing. But how it happened, it was definitely a long time kind of getting all the logistics down and, the flights and the equipment and having everything dialed. Fortunately, you and I do know a couple folks. Chris Tobias is a good friend of ours. So he's a huge help when it comes to setting a trip like this up. He's able to talk to the guys up in Alaska with the raft equipment that we needed to use. And, I was able to get it all rented and all that stuff way ahead of time, which you have to do. But there's a lot of little things to set up a trip like this. No doubt about it. It's a little intimidating when you're first starting. I know meat out of Alaska is probably the scariest thing. How do you get your heads and horns and meat and everything back to your home state? That's a big one. We could probably have a whole podcast on just that alone and some of the things that we learned and how we used the outfits up there to get our meat back. But I think day one, how the heck did we end up there? Took a couple days to get there from where we are, and the video did start out. Maybe there was some confusion. Did start out on day 2, right?
Yep.
Started out on day 2. There was a little bit missed there in the beginning. But in your edits, you kind of go back and highlight some of what happened on day 1 with Chris and him filling his tags. So that was cool. But, we ended up on a river. We ended up with 2 big rafts, pontoon boat, and a big round boat with pretty minimal gear, knowing that we were going to need all space and all weight capacity if we did our job and we were to fill our tags, which we had quite a few tags between the three of us. And then we also grabbed a couple of pack rafts to also help with getting meat back to the big boats and on down the river. So yeah, this was a long trip, long float. We don't have to go into miles or anything like that, but definitely a lot of days of floating, which was real neat. The scenery up there is incredible. And we had just enough days to also do enough hunting to fill, what did we fill? 10 tags, I think. From the three of us, we filled something like 10 tags. 10 of 11 tags is what we filled. So,
yes.
Yeah, no, fun hunt all around. Definitely a dream hunt. Love to do it again. But,
yeah, a lot of folks are so this was do it yourself, but we did, have Chris Tobias, who is Sheep Shape Alaska. If you guys follow him on, at least I think he got banned from Instagram at one point, but he might be back. But Chris is an awesome guy. I got to meet him when I went on my first grizzly bear hunt with Chris, and I went out there with Eric Lee is the owner of Adventures Alaskan Adventure Hunts or something like that. I'm terrible with names, but awesome little outfit. And so I met Chris, and we got to be good friends. And since then, we've continued to be good friends. And Chris is a tough guy. We knew that he would be a good fit for us, and we've always wanted to do this type of do-it-yourself moose hunt. Yeah. And we did an earlier podcast about moose hunting, and we did a little contrast from our hunt to the Meat Eater podcast that had just recorded a show right about the same time we did about their moose hunt. We floated a river, and one of the reasons we wanted to do that was because you can cover ground, lots of ground, and you can hit so many little places. And if you do kill something, it's typically, needs to be within a certain range of the river, because moose are so big and you can't debone them and all those other reasons, logistics wise. And so when we took on this hunt, it was pretty exciting because the style is very, very conducive to hunting moose. And if you do land on like a big lake somewhere, you're stuck to the lake, and you kind of need the moose to be somewhere near the lake. It's not feasible. I mean,
yeah, you're really confined, like you say, to a very small area. And if you take a river that's 20, 30, 40, 100 miles, your surface area of where you get to see is much, much larger. Now combo all the little tributaries that you can hike up and get your meat down with pack rafts, and you've just opened up a crud ton of country, and you're not just sitting on the same glass and knob waiting. You're able to move around, much more conducive to our style. We like to get up on glass and spots and glass and go, and then hit another one and glass and go, and it's just more exciting.
And you can see how important waterways were. Like when we're out there trying to do this sort of hunt, how important waterways were to early folks, like early settlers of the United States and so on, native people and such, because without a horse, I mean, that's your other means of transportation, but outside of that, you really don't have that much in terms of options for transporting heavy amounts of meat and hide,
Which moose absolutely are. Very, very heavy. I think what we've noticed and what we got from a lot of people was, 500 yards was kind of the going area. Try to shoot them within 500 yards of your takeout, your river, your access to get meat from. So, and I don't know what they say, like when you land somewhere, whether it's a lake or open tundra and you're hunting moose, I've heard half a mile. Try not to go beyond a half a mile. Boy, that's limiting. But, obviously packing moose more than a half a mile is definitely a struggle. Half a mile doesn't sound very long, but you got to remember the ground you're packing it over can be extremely tough to navigate, to walk over. Sometimes it's marshy. That tussock grass, it's just hard to cover ground in fast, and it really gives you a good workout. So, we were able to leverage our pack rafts to now see that, all right, there's a creek that comes out of that lake. We have all that area way out there that we can hunt and eyeball, and if we do happen to see a moose, we already know we can go get that moose. So we weren't so limited in our area. It really did open it up a lot, and we used those things a lot. Thankfully, we packed 2 of them. We would have been probably in a little bit of hurt if we wouldn't have packed both pack rafts, because we utilized them a lot. We packed, definitely used them for packing some moose back to the main stem of the river, as well as caribou. 2 oars would have been great. 2 pack rafts, but we only had 1, but we made it work.
So let's set the stage for day 1 leading into day 2, because I didn't have time to put day 1 together. In fact, this is going to be 3 more episodes for this trip at least, but it was like 12 days.
Yeah.
So folks, you're going to miss out on a lot of in between stuff, because I don't have time to do all that. Yeah, lots getting chopped. So, set it up.
Well, we found a little tip of this island. It was a great little spot, and so we got there, and very quickly we just wanted to kind of get eyes on the land there, I guess, get the layout of it. Didn't have much daylight left, so we just kind of tied the boats up, got things ready a little bit, and climbed up this little knob, and got up there. And no sooner did we get up there, Chris started making some calls, and let me say, the guy sounds good. He sounds like he makes a pretty good elk call for sure. He's done it.
Moose call. Moose, and whether it's a bull or a cow.
Mm-hmm.
He nailed them both.
Sounds good. And we got up there, and danged if we didn't see, to his calls, a small bull downriver, basically looking our direction. Those paddles just make them so easy to see. Like when they're there, they got these big beacons. It seems like a beacon of light out there. You see them real easy if they're looking at you. And so we saw one bull, and he started moving our direction. We didn't know. We noticed right away he wasn't a legal bull, but it was pretty cool to watch him be so willing to come our direction with those calls so fast. And so we moved to a little bit different glassing spot just before daylight. Again, Chris was doing some calling, and upriver, we saw this pretty nice bull stomping through, like they do the big swinging head thing down this channel, and he was busting brush and doing
making trees.
Ruddy old bulls do, and he was coming our direction.
And he was a shooter.
He was a good one. Yeah, a real good one. And so, out of the gates, like, we were pretty excited because we were, like, this could actually happen. And so that was pretty cool. And we were kind of talking after, hopefully that big bull is in this big kind of like a pasture, big meadow type area in the morning. So we were hoping that was going to be the case. But he didn't end up hanging around too long, I guess. So he wasn't there in the next morning.
The next morning when we got up, we were seeing caribou all over the place, just kind of migrating and crossing the river that we were camped on.
Yeah, we just happened to plop ourselves down in this perfect little spot where the migration was going. Now, we had this mountain pass. It's kind of mountainous in that area. Mountain pass where the caribou were trucking right on out. And we could glass way up in that pass in the timber and see small groups shooting through, like, amongst the trees. And inevitably, we kind of, figured it out, like, well, an hour to 2 hours later, we're going to have caribou come right by us in this point. So it was kind of fun just sitting back, paying attention to that, and kind of patterning them, I guess, and figuring out their time frames and where they were going, which direction they were going. They all went the same basic direction, Some of them took a little bit different paths, but we started noticing these. It seemed as if they're historic travel trails where, maybe they funnel down into this little valley just before it hits the river. And they would inevitably know right where these trails are, take those trails right, cross over, and then they would hit these big flats and marshes and take a general direction. And so that second day, we had all kinds of action, just fun, looking at caribou, figuring out where we probably should be. We ended up, Chris ended up taking a couple that day as we were bombing around all over the place. And then I spent most of the day sitting on a glass and knob, just kind of observing while you guys are breaking down animals.
You saw wolves and grizzly bears that day as well.
Big old mama with her cub. Saw wolf across the river. Saw a lot of caribou. Don't think I saw any moose that day, but yeah, it was action packed. It started, raining, got under the tarp and just kept the binos focused out there and kept eyes on the tundra. And it was pretty cool to see these general directions where they were going. And we were fortunate we had this big flat across from us where, it didn't matter where they popped into this flat. Inevitably, most of them, not all of them, but most of them would take this route. They'd hit a certain spot, and then they'd cruise past this berm out there that we could see.
Mesa, berm, some kind of plateau.
And so naturally, you just kind of think, well, that's a good spot, probably a good spot to sit, because maybe 8 out of 10 groups are ending up right along this berm. And two of the best bulls I saw on the trip were paired up, just two together. And lo and behold, they ended up cruising right past that berm. It looked like within 100, 200 yards of it. So you and I were like, well, they're patternable, apparently. At least that first day, they were taking the same routes and going by the same places, and made it pretty easy for us to decide where we wanted to be that next day.
Well, and we could see a tributary river that ran along not far from the berm. And so, because you wouldn't want to shoot one necessarily out there when you could shoot one right on the river where we were camped.
Right.
But where they crossed where we were camped was random. Some of the bigger bulls that we'd see, they'd cross where we couldn't shoot them. But it seemed like on the berm, if we were on the berm, we could be very selective and actually pick the biggest ones we wanted, and then really motor down up and down that berm, parallel or not parallel, perpendicular to these bulls where they're coming from, and just like we did, basically.
Yeah, there was a couple advantages it was going to give us. Number one, we realized real fast, like it seemed as if where we were perched on our first knob and I was observing these caribou coming by, when they got to within a half mile of that river, they never stopped. Like it was going to be pretty dang hard to get a bull to stop when they were within our range to get them to stop to get a shot. They were cruising, literally running to that river, crossing over. Once they got to the other side, it got spread out. It got much more open. Maybe it's a predator thing. They can see better where it's not so chopped up and wooded. And they slowed down. They actually fed, and they would stop at times. So that was another advantage we had, was that area across the river. Yes, it was a lot further to go, but they were actually slowing down and stopping on occasion.
Right, because you set up on a bull, or that's that one day, the day before. But they were motoring so fast, like they wouldn't stop for nothing. You could yell at them, whatever. They just like the people saw in the video,
hard to get them to stop.
They don't want to stop. They just keep going. And so you're right. Once they hit the tundra on the other side, the big open flat, you could see them. They still motor through that tundra, but they have periods where they stop and eat, and then they motor, and then they eat, motor. And so it was a little easier to perhaps get them there than it would be right along the river and in the timber. They were just
they were cruising. They were literally, they'd go from a walk when we'd first see them to within about a half mile, they would just start trotting and moving. Some of them just racing and crashing into that river.
And I had a camera on one of these it was a nice bull, not as good as the ones we shot, but the first bull you were set up on. And I had the camera on him, but he's in the thick of a giant herd, and you just couldn't take an ethical shot without shooting through him and hitting something else, or having a caribou walk right in front of him. They were herded up so tight that you just didn't really have a shot.
That was another problem we found. And another advantage to being up on a berm was we had the fortune of looking down on them, which inevitably when they're herded up, typically you'll get more opportunities to single one out with some ground behind it and not have just a bunch of other caribou and behind, a flat shooting shot. So I think everybody knows the advantage of having the high ground, and we had it over there. We could see them, and like you said, perpendicular. We could cruise no matter where they came, whether they came by the berm or up onto the berm. We could move right or left and just get in front of them.
Yeah,
sounds easier than it was. They cruise really fast.
That line in the movie where I'm like, well, they outflanked us. There was a group we were like, we'll get those guys. And then you're like, yeah, there ain't no catching up to a caribou.
Oh, we went like 2 miles down that thing, and then we're already looking, and they're already past us and just motoring through the timber.
Yeah, you really had to time it just right. Otherwise, if you saw a beautiful bull and it walked past you, 50 yards, you trying to catch up to them, and then they're 100 yards, 200 yards, 400 yards, 500, and then they're gone. Like, they're gone. You lose ground. You have to intercept them, or it's over.
And that seems like, all of a sudden when we got up on that berm and we were able to try to gauge, all right, I think we need to be over there, try to get in front of that group. That made it exciting. That made it fun. That made caribou hunting we were almost running and gunning at times, race down here and try to get in front of this group. That didn't happen. Let's race back over here. And probably they ended up coming right by our berm. We could have sat there and just had the whole, all our success right off the tip of that berm.
But I do think it was more fun hunting them from the berm than it was when we were down in the timber next to the river.
Yeah.
Trying to get around the terrain there. The other thing that was interesting was the fact that some of the biggest bulls that we saw were in pairs of two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the biggest bulls we saw were paired up. They weren't in those giant groups. 20, 30, I guess. We weren't seeing massive, 100 type groups necessarily. Mm-hmm. We were seeing groups of 6 to 10 to 12 to 20. But the best bulls we saw were groups of 2.
Yeah. And one thing that was, as they came across that open and we were able to intercept the group, we knew, you wouldn't want to kill one across that tundra so far from the river. That would take up valuable days of perhaps hunting moose and other animals that are on our bucket list there. And, we didn't want to burn. You only have so many days for the hunt. You don't want to burn it on 3 days of packing meat. Because you have more tags you want to get to. So there's a strategy involved, tactics. And fortunately, we did have the pack rafts. And so we knew if we killed by this berm, which is pretty far from the main river and camp, that was okay because the tributary river flowed right to the main river. So we only had to cart them about 500 or 600 yards to that river.
We had placed our pack rafts in this one lone tree out there, and actually where we ended up shooting our first 2 bulls, we were basically shooting in the direction of where we had placed our pack rafts, so we could then go to our bulls. Our pack rafts were 300 yards beyond that, and then another 300, 400, 500 yards beyond that was the tributary. So it was a good progression to pack our meat to the tree where we'd left the pack rafts, right to the trib, float the trib down to the main stem. Yeah, we nailed that one somehow, some way. Logistically, we got that one dialed, and it worked out.
Now, if a guy just wanted to kill a caribou, he could have done it from our camp or close to it, and wouldn't have to pack far at all. But you wouldn't be able to be super selective necessarily. You'd have to just hope that, the bull you would like to take will come by, or you just take any bull, if that's the case. So
yeah, and again, it was so frustrating watching those bulls not move or not stop to where you could actually get a good ethical shot. You could take runners all day long, but that's probably not the best way to go. They move fast. You're probably hitting those things in the hindquarters, taking a running shot. So I think the way we did it just set us up for a much better, cleaner opportunity getting bulls standing. We got nice close shots. They were inside of 200, 175 yards basically on everything, all 4 bulls, right in that range anyway. So,
and we were able to take 4 of the biggest bulls we saw and did it all in one morning, basically. Like, it happened fast.
It happened quick, yeah. A double. I saw folks commenting on that. I didn't even think about that. It was a double, and then we did another double, so we got 2 doubles in a row. But
and I would say it was like super efficient, professional, like flawless until that last bull. And then that last bull became a little bit of a rodeo. And
he didn't want to stop, number one, or he would stop and there'd be a bunch of cows behind it, a bull behind it. And, as folks saw the video, you see what our bullets are doing, ripping through these soft-hided animals. They zip right through there. And we definitely don't want to shoot with something behind it ever. And that was a struggle because, there's always seemed to be animals behind the one that you wanted to take.
The biggest problem was the herd with that second group, because once you shot the one bull, they were kind of spread out before they saw, Commander-in-Chief go down. And then when Commander-in-Chief dropped, they all bunched up tight and got into a group. They're like, okay, run to the safety of the herd. We're not sure what happened. Joe over there just keeled over. And so they got all bunched up tight. And so at first I had a moment where I was just getting ready to squeeze when I figured out which one he was, because I was switching from camera to shooter, and I wasn't paying attention to my bull. I was filming yours. Yeah. So then where my bull was in relation to the group was a little bit tricky.
Combo that with, there was another bull that was almost similar to your bull.
Yeah.
Little less mature. So, and they were kind of going back and forth, the 2 leaders now. And that made it confusing. So it was a constant, like, which is the bull that we're going for?
Yep.
Is he stopped? Dang it, there's animals behind it. It was, a little bit of a cluster.
And then the timber, because they had come so close, and we happened to be in a spot that had a few trees. All it takes is like 8 or 9 trees in a row right there. And it was like he'd always stop where I had brush, and then he'd walk in my openings. And finally, as they relaxed a little bit, because they covered a bit of ground walking parallel to us, finally you could see they dispersed again and spread out. And that's when I was able to finally get a lock on him. And, Ryan, his head was turned when you watch that shot. His head is covering
just a perfect
his
shot.
vital.
He no sooner pulls his nose off of that spot in his vitals, and you take the shot, and couldn't have set that bullet any more perfect. But,
it's funny because when he got there and I finally had an open shot, open lane, no other bull, and he paused for just a second, I put that thing right where I wanted the bullet to go, and his face was in the way. And I'm like, as soon as I see him start to move a tiny bit, I'm going to start squeezing. And he just barely started to move his chin, and I start squeeze, and that bullet went off.
That was so
right.
Cool.
His head popped out.
I didn't even notice that until I watched the film yesterday, actually, to see how close it was, where he did just pivot enough to where you could sneak that thing right past his nose and right behind that shoulder and double lunged him. But
I was frustrated. I was a little frustrated.
You can watch the video and see how many times when that bull would stop, he'd be either quartering to us or straight on. And, we could definitely take frontal shots. We could take shoulder shots. But folks need to understand, like, because I hear people say it all the time, like, why didn't you take that shot, or why didn't you shoot him in the shoulders? And you and I have talked about this. Like, we want the meat, number one. So the goal is to never place that crosshairs on the shoulder if likely we're going to have opportunity to get it total broadside, or enough broadside that you're double lunging him and not having to hit bone, not having to hit one of them precious quarters. That's always the goal, right?
Yeah.
And so, sometimes you got to wait a little bit and not just put it center punch them and blow out that offside shoulder. And so we waited and made sure that we had, you snuck it right in behind that shoulder. So no meat loss on all 4 bulls, which is great.
And I felt a little rushed, where being the second shooter in the lineup, I felt a little rushed to try to get the bull down before they just motored out of there. Where with the first bull, they're such a herd animal. You can tell, like when that other bull went down, the lone bull didn't want to leave. He had no herd.
Yeah.
There's a part of him that's just like standing by his buddy. So I knew I had time, and there's no other bulls to compete with, no herd for him to motor off with. So it was a nice, smooth transition. Plus, it just was really smooth, except for the part where I blew a hole through your antler with a bullet.
Yeah. Did folks see that? A couple of folks noticed it.
There's a few people.
We were actually like, one of those things where we don't know exactly what happened until the video gets watched later. Kind of like with Red Lightning back in the day. We had no idea that Red came in. Well, this is one of those things where when you and I walked up to our bulls, which are literally 30 feet apart, is really cool, side by side. We got 2 beautiful bulls sitting there. And first thing I notice is, well, dang, there's right through the brow tine on my bull, there's like a clean bullet hole right through it. And we're like, first we were like, did your bullet go through it? And then we were trying to think about it. We're like, I don't think so. Didn't really make sense from where he was standing, but you're like, well, you think somebody else? And there's nobody in this area ever that we didn't hear any shots, and it looked like a pretty clean hole. I don't know. We were scratching our heads like maybe they migrated past a camp yesterday and somebody took a shot and put a hole. But then you went back and you started editing, and you literally see the bullet go through your Caribou, right through that brow tine, and it just blows out the other side.
You can see the dust and smoke come from your brow. When I slow it down, you can see the residual
in the video
dust.
Left comments. They noticed that you tried shooting my antler off.
What's great about that, though, is every time you look at that, like somebody did type in there, that's like a perfect reminder of how that whole thing went down. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, exactly.
You get in the scope and you're looking through the scope and you see the vitals. From where my angle, I didn't notice your bull
I didn't either.
Being in the line there. I didn't notice it because I saw his body in the back.
You're so focused on getting that perfect shot. You're not looking at, there's a bull at his feet. So he's kind of hidden. It was just, and he's kind of tucked down into the tundra. You had to look pretty close to see that antler sticking up behind him. And neither one of you or I noticed that until after the fact.
And you can see how that, like you were saying, the strategy of being high, having some high ground. You can see how that bull is on the ground and brow tine is low. I mean, it passed through my bull and went through your bull's antler, but it was near the ground. I mean, if there was a bull behind him, I could just shoot him.
Yeah, much less likely to shoot another animal if you got the high ground like that, looking down on them at our angle. So,
let's switch gears a little bit and talk about the performance of the rifle, because I used it. I used that rifle the rest of the season, and I've got to say, Ryan, I think it's my favorite rifle now.
From Weatherby, yeah, they nailed this one, didn't they? So what Weatherby came out with is, we've shot the backcountry, whether it's the backcountry or the backcountry TI version, RPMs, which they came out with a couple years ago. We've been shooting that 6.5 RPM and having great luck with it. Great shooters. And this 338 had been in the works for a while from them over there. So we're excited to get our hands on it. And a couple things, they managed to take the typical Weatherby 24-inch barrel, get it down to 18 inches for their stainless barrels. I think you can get it in a 20-inch in the carbon too. which was exciting. You and I have both been screaming about wanting a shorter barrel, on these hunts. Longer barrels just tend to grab stuff. And so it was pretty exciting that they built a nice shorty, especially in a 338. So you got a 338 in a 5-pound rifle that we're now able to push 225 grains downrange at these, we got it from Moose. And so, yeah, and the performance of this sucker is incredible. Shoots really, really well. A lot of people probably, first question would be is, how's the punch on a 338 on a 5-pound platform? Definitely much more so than a 6.5. I can say that, pushing a big old 225 down there. But honestly, Brian, and I'm not just saying this, but it is shocking how well that thing shoots in a 5-pound rifle for a 338. I don't even notice it at all. So it's now I put a little TI Pro 5-port brake on there on the end of it, which really helps. So that little lightweight 338 shoots great, has really done everything we asked of it. And it's nice because it doesn't grab brush in that shorter barrel. So speed-wise, you lose a little. Obviously, I think I'm maxed out on my turrets at about 950 or something like that because we're only pumping those things out. I think speed, we're looking at about 2680 feet or something like that per second out of the barrel. So they're much slower than what we're accustomed to. But still, no matter, they really, really shoot well.
Well, let's talk about the bullet and the performance of that 225 grains Barn TTSX, because we shot moose and we shot caribou. And did you shoot your deer with it?
No, I actually, because I was hunting with my daughter, I went back to the 6.5 RPM, which she shoots really, really well. And so we both used the same gun. So I didn't have her shoot the 338. She's so small that might have hurt a little bit.
I shot my I shot my bull elk with it. But with my mule deer, I just rolled over onto Mark's rifle because it was just fast and it was close range, and I took that buck. Nice. But I did use it on elk, and similar experience to the moose and the caribou. I mean, the bullet doesn't fragment,
right,
and it puts a clean hole like from one end to the other in the animal, whops them hard, and it seems as though they run 10 yards, 20 yards max, and they stop, and they're like, what is going on? And then they fall over. Like every animal.
We saw it with all 4 caribou. We saw it with my moose, and apparently you saw it on your hunt as well for elk. I mean, so
it just punched through those lungs, and that elk ran just about 15, 20 yards.
Yeah.
And falls over.
We pulled a bullet out of the moose, and it's about as perfect as can be. If you want like a perfectly looking bullet after the fact, you look at this thing that I have. I should have brought it down here. It is mushroomed out so perfectly clean.
Each mushroom piece seems the perfect width as well.
It's like couldn't have been any more picture perfect in how all 4 of those just splayed open. So yeah, it did some serious damage.
And what's wild is how it went through the whole moose, and it just barely got caught in the backside of the hide there.
Yeah.
And so you were able to get it and look at it, and I'm holding it in my hand, and I'm like, that is a heavy chunk of metal, all intact, beautifully mushroomed. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot different performer than, let's say, your AccuBond style. I'm really impressed with how it puts the animal down and how quick it does it.
Yeah, everything we've seen has been perfect. that bullet combination with that rifle, if I was to go hunt moose again or caribou, if I ever draw a rifle elk tag or get a hunt elk with the rifle, then I know what I'm using. It's that combo right there. It's been money. So
now you have the 180 grain. We have 180 grain bullets as well.
185 Barnes or the 225 grain Barnes. So,
but it's hard to go away from the 225.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've just seen what it can do. And, I wouldn't want to see what it would do to a quarter or the backside shoulder if you were to take a quartering, 2-quartering away shot on a deer. You're going to lose a lot of meat there, probably. It's going to put a pretty ugly spot on the backside of that deer. But like we already talked about, we're always focusing on those double lungers, broadside shots if possible. So it's not really a worry.
And I would say when I shot my 300 Weatherby, I used that quite a bit because I wanted a bigger caliber, something that lays a hit more. The performance is a little different. Like with the 300 Weatherby, it's not like it sends a big chunk of metal through it from end to end. It almost like it goes in and explodes inside. There's a lot more. I didn't lose any meat with this 338 on anything. Double lung didn't cause too much, damage out beyond the wound channel. But that 300, it'll mess some stuff up.
It's pushing up there. Like it's over 3,000, isn't it? Like 3,200 feet per second, something crazy on that 300 Weatherby. That's a burner right there. So way different than our 2650 or 2680 feet per second, 338. Yeah,
the different response by the animal, different performance of the bull. But I'm really impressed with it. But you got to admit,
it is nice pushing a lot heavier bullet though. Like you said, you felt it. It's much heavier, but obviously heavier is better shooting in windy conditions, things like that. It's just going to
for the ranges we're shooting. It's a great rifle option, and you got to admit, like at the end of the day, the weight and the length of the barrel have us in love with this thing. I mean, that's it. Like performance wise, that's great.
Over your backpack, and you hardly feel it at 5 pounds. So again, it's 6.5 pounds scoped up, rings, bases, everything, and that's a lightweight rifle for what we're able to get out of it. But yeah, I'll be honest. Like I wanted to take it on my deer hunt this year because of the wind out there, the conditions that we had. I just didn't want to pack 2 with my daughter and, doing it at the same time. Or if it would have just me been on that hunt, I would have grabbed 338 for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely it's a little bit of peace of mind shooting in those real windy eastern type areas where it's just ripping. We had some absolute crazy wind this year, 40s, 50s, just nonstop.
It was gross. Yeah. Mark and I shot our bucks in the blizzard. It was just a sideways whiteout, just nasty.
Right.
It was wild. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. Like I said, there's more coming down the pipeline. If you've got a question, leave the question in the comments section of the YouTube video. We do our best to really engage on the YouTube platform and respond to all
We're
those.
still playing catch up from the hunting season, but we're getting there.
We're getting there. But leave a comment in there and we'll try to get back to you if you have questions or do another podcast on the subject. Hope you found it interesting. I'm loving the rifle. The hunt tactics were interesting. We'll get into another podcast down the road with Ryan and I where we talk about maybe if you guys want to do this hunt, how to get started. But in the meantime, don't forget about our sale with Peaks right now. Big hunt giveaway package, $6,000 package. Just shop at Peaks. Get a deal using the code Gritty and get entered to win the big package. Another one is, buy a hat or shirt at Gritty. We would appreciate it so much. You're basically helping my sister. I'm not really taking any money from the merch at all. It all goes to my sister and her brother-in-law. I would love for her to quit her job at Lowe's and be able to stay.
Your brother-in-law.
Yeah, my brother-in-law. I would love for her to be able to stay home more with her family, and she can do that through this kind of work at home type opportunity. So it's cool for her. But if you get entered, if you go by there, every $10 gets you entered to win the Weatherby rifle and Leupold scope, 6.5 RPM, Mark 5 Hunter. It's a sweet deal, and we're excited. All the giveaways will be given away on December 18th. That's it for today. Tune in next time. Stay gritty.